Hi guys, today we are going to be talking about psychedelics, specifically ayahuasca.
My favorite genre of
if you guys know
drugs.
VSauce, Michael from VSauce, he's on the H3 podcast talking about his
VSauce.
experience. So
Let me start with the ayahuasca because I feel like on the show, I wanted to hear more about how was that experience for you,
Right.
Because it was a weird, trippy thing. Like it's one thing to take a psychedelic and hang out with your friends. It's another thing to hang out in like a jungle while some robed man chants.
It's
while you
always
trip
with a
balls.
shaman
And
or a
be
medicine
recorded
man.
for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like
That's a weird way to do a psychedelic.
Yes.
Hey guys, rather than doing it in like my dorm room, I'm going to do it in the middle of nowhere where no one has cell connection, where the only way to get back to a city is by taking a boat ride for hours
You're
and
implying
flying.
there was a measure of paranoia.
There was a lot of fear, and I don't
Right.
think, we didn't record a lot of that, but I was really nervous as the date approached because I couldn't say no. I could. I made it very clear that, like, look, if we're going to do this, we all need to agree that up until the moment I put it to my lips, I can say no.
Yeah.
So what happened was
You don't want to trip out when you're like freaking out, even though it doesn't kill you. It's like
so this guy Michael, he has a channel called VSauce, which is like a scientific commentary, quasi educational channel, and
YouTube channel.
yeah, on YouTube.
VSauce.
And so YouTube hired him to make some videos for them, like a YouTube production. So they called it Minefield. So they paid him to go to Peru to take ayahuasca.
Do
And
they
so
need a test too?
that's the setup.
We'll do a group. You guys can
And
film
no
us.
one's going to be mad that we went all the way out there.
Right.
Because I didn't plan on not doing it, but I wanted...
You want to reserve the
To have
right.
that.
I didn't want to feel forced.
Yeah.
And so I said, look, when it comes to the decision process and what we do and how it works, that hierarchy goes me, then the shaman, and then everyone else.
I love that the
The
shaman
shaman.
Yeah.
supersedes.
If the shaman thinks that we need to have the lights off, if the shaman thinks that we
Right.
need to
Okay.
stop recording,
Right.
and I can't respond, you listen to the shaman.
That's good. I've heard shamans, they're important because they can see what might be going on and they also can dose you correctly.
Yeah, what a nuts way to take a psychedelic because you feel very
It's a long
sensitive.
trip.
Yeah, and it's a long
Yeah,
trip.
it's a
and
long
to be like to
ride.
be in front of cameras and in front of lights. Anyways, let's take a look. Let's take a look at his taking the ayahuasca. We'll take a look at the actual episode that he's in where he actually takes it. Okay, so I should set this up. So he did an initial dose, which is like a third of a cup, and so his second dose the next day, he's taking 3/4 of a cup. So more than twice the amount he took the other day.
So the tester was just to see how he would react.
Yeah.
And then they. Oh, okay.
Buenas noches.
So you drink it, the ayahuasca.
I wonder what it tastes like.
He
Yeah,
said
I think they have to
earthy.
brew a tea because they have to put.
12 minutes after indigestion. So this trip lasts about 4 hours when you take
like a
a big
mushroom
dose. Yeah. But very, very intense. 12 minutes after he drank it.
He looks so
I started to
comfortable.
see these very geometric, bright squares, like stacked like
wonder
Aztec
if he's
pyramids, moving, and I was
acid.
traveling down through these, like repeating kind of, fractaled images of everything. I mean, too many things to really describe. Music notes and colors and shapes and squares. Then I started to feel like, oh my gosh, this is going faster and faster, and this is too fast, and it hasn't even been that long. And then I felt my body being covered with these blocks, and I saw my body from above and felt like I was disappearing.
What?
There's a term
And
for
that's when my
that.
heart started racing, and I said, this was very bad. This is not good. A lot of emotions I always have were amplified so loudly I couldn't ignore them. And I had to come up with ways to console myself so that I wouldn't be consumed by them and have a complete breakdown and panic attack. And I resisted, and I successfully brought myself back to calmness just by saying, I'm fine. I'm not going to die, and everyone here can help me.
Only
Yeah,
40
you just have
minutes?
to know that you're not gonna die. Like it's just a phase.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Visions were really, really vivid. They didn't feel like they were under my control. It really felt like they were just there. A note from the song would occur and it would cause this image. And that was pretty frightening because I was like on a ride that I didn't know the path of.
Roller coaster.
Like a mental roller coaster. Yeah. So,
It's like, where's your mind's eye gonna take you in your vast spaces?
yeah, so we've both done psychedelics. Not ayahuasca, unfortunately. It looks like a lot of fun. I just don't know where to get it.
know.
But
I would.
the-
They have like diets and stuff you do before you take
right,
it.
but psychedelics in general, it makes visuals very vivid. And you also almost have a sense of like synesthesia where like things that you hear have a visual
Effect.
yeah, and it's crazy. And so the way he describes his ayahuasca is like it seems really intense because I've never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, I've never seen fake stuff. Only, I'd have to like close my eyes or things will move, but never something new pops
Yeah.
up. Nothing like,
Yeah, it's like
it's in my mind. I have to close my eyes and see it in my mind. And that I can see. I can see bright colors behind my eyelids and stuff, but that's just like me visualizing something in my brain. But like,
yeah, his is
I don't know if his eyes were
involuntary.
open. Yeah, like if you see that, that's kind of like maybe that's why they have you in a bed. You can be walking around.
Well, let's see what he learned on ayahuasca.
Oh yeah, it was an
But tell me about that
experiment.
experience, because first of all, was it your first psychedelic experience?
As far as my mother knows, yes, of course.
All right,
Yeah.
she's not watching this. This isn't your mother's show.
and so it was man, I think the initial emotion I had before the ceremony was aggravation.
Really?
Yeah, because I was nervous, but I couldn't do it my way.
What was your way?
My way would have been to not have all the cameras there, to not have to make a show.
Right.
And so this is what's going through my mind. I'm like hanging out in the hut, waiting for the shaman and his assistants to come and get me.
He wanted to
But I
fully
can't
let
just get
go.
Well, I think that's the thing about because he's done, or you know, everyone according, not that's not his mother. He's done psychedelics before, and I think you understand that like once you digest it or once it's in your mouth, you're on a ride, and it's gonna take like
Like throwing up. probably
like
won't-
4 to 10 hours depending on the dosage or the psychedelic, and you want to be comfortable because you're going to be really sensitive, like visually, auditorily, like you don't really want to be bothered. So I totally understand where he's getting kind of like aggravated beforehand because like
He
it's
knows
not
he kind of has some parameters with which he has to like
yeah
follow through. Like he can't.
He has
just
a
let
job
go.
to do.
Yeah, exactly. He has a job to do, so he's still thinking about that. He can't just like be like, "All right, this is
yeah
I think
he
most
can't-
people take psychedelics to be like, I'm gonna just unwind, let go, and experience this.
yeah
But that's stressful.
yeah all right, let's keep going.
and then taken to the ceremony, we have to like do multiple angles and takes.
The experience couldn't be authentic.
It was totally authentic, but I had a job to do during it.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
He had
that
to
I
work.
couldn't just completely surrender myself to the
Right.
experience
Right.
as me. I had to be Michael, the host of Mindfield.
Right.
I had to listen to direction like, ooh, you know what, we have to do that again because like this light was in the wrong place, or we need to get the coverage of
My
the shot of
God.
you entering. And I'm fine doing that, but I had bigger things on my mind. And
Like
so,
colors
Literally.
and shapes.
well, not even then yet, because I hadn't even
weren't-
taken it.
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know what kind of colors and shapes are they going to be. It was frightening. Okay, so then we've got a crew of people, right? We've got something like 8 people there, and they've got microphones all around. And usually you do this in the complete darkness. That makes for a terrible show. So we had to have lights installed, which made me really self-conscious.
Right.
Because not only am I being watched and surrounded by people,
And you're the
You're
only one
expected to
high
perform, which I-
tripping.
Also, when lights are facing you, it makes it really hard to look out because all you can see are bright lights. And
Yes,
so
it's
you almost
blinding.
you just see a bunch of lights and you can't see anything else. And so it's like disorienting and like you're self-conscious because everyone's looking at you.
Yeah, my I hate. Yeah, and psychedelics kind of make you subconscious.
It makes you hyper aware. Like psychedelics, what it does to your mind.
But everybody
is,
watching you.
No, I know.
Is
So
be
what's
like,
your brain is constantly like taking in stimulus, right, through your eyes and through your ears,
all your senses.
And so what the brain does is it filters out like a bunch of the things that aren't really important. Like you know, you ignore things. But what psychedelics does is it takes out all of those filters, so you get in all of that raw stimulus. So all of the lights, all of the movement, all of the sounds, like you just hear them all, or you're just exposed to them all. And so yeah, definitely like the lights would have a huge impact, and like people moving, people shuffling around, people like adjusting the mics, like he's gonna notice all of it.
Quiet and dark.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're trying their best to be quiet, but when you're on something like as strong as ayahuasca, you're gonna notice.
You're like, can you repeat that?
I only imagine would be such an awful feeling while you're tripping balls.
Right. Okay. So expected to perform was another concern I had. So I also made it clear that if I do nothing but lay there catatonically for 8 hours, you're all going to be happy. Agreed?
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna.
So he already knew. He already knew what he already prepped himself. I think he was still stressed though about it.
Well, I think you're going to be stressed regardless because like you're flying all that way, like you have to get the insurance, you have to, you know. And so yeah, I think it's just performance anxiety, regular performance anxiety, really.
Ability or obligation, because you're in a different state of mind.
Yeah.
And I can perform, that's my career, that's my job. I'm used to that in this state of mind.
My
sober.
Ayahuasca,
Angry or grumpy or happy, I can still do those jobs, but I wasn't familiar with what it was like to be in the state of mind that DMT creates.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily,
DMT is like the psychedelic active component in ayahuasca. So when he says DMT and ayahuasca, those are pretty interchangeable.
DMT is the extracted, like when you get the rock form, it's extracted. It's like the dabs of weed.
Yeah, so DMT is also its own psychedelic. I mean, it's like the extract. Yeah, right. DMT is the extracted form of ayahuasca. Yeah, exactly.
The active ingredient in ayahuasca. Yeah.
had all that figured out, and it wasn't that big of an issue, but I felt really unhappy that I had to have all these eyes on me. And then as the drug started to take the effect, I felt feelings of guilt.
Really?
Because here I am, I was paid to fly to Peru to take drugs. And only I got to take them. No one else on the crew.
I would have been like, half the people
had
have to take
signed
it with me.
No, but he's going to explain it right now. We'll just listen.
Oh.
insurance paperwork, or would probably be able to do their job properly if they had also taken it.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, so they didn't sign the right insurance paperwork, and they had their own job to do, and there's no guarantee that they would have been able to do their job while he was tripping balls.
They can pay for just one extra dude to come along to trip out with.
I know, but that person has to like take the insurance and like do all this stuff. It's just too much.
I'll go with next time without insurance.
It could have been interesting. Maybe season 3.
The boom guy.
Yeah, you can go season 3. Be a boom guy. You just have to hold the mic.
And I'm not going
the
to take the
shaman
first
drank
one.
some.
Oh, okay.
I
God
didn't know
bless
he
him.
would do that. But when he took a dose, I was like,
shaman
Were you a little
drinks them.
concerned when you saw the shaman dip in?
yeah, because I was thinking, wait, I thought you were
You're
the
my
one watching
guide.
over me.
You're my guide, bro.
Yeah.
He has to go where you go.
But let me tell you this.
Bring you back
when
out.
the effects got stronger and stronger, my feelings of fear and guilt and the self-awareness of all the cameras on me, that every motion I did was going to be caught, and if I sat up, they'd have to reposition cameras, and I'd be aware of that. And what if it didn't work? What if they needed to give me some kind of direction and I wasn't in the right state of mind? I eventually realized, hey, as annoying as it is to have all these cameras around, if we didn't have the cameras here, there wouldn't be a show. And I'm doing this for the audience. I'm doing this for Robin, the researcher who was there. It's not about me. All of these concerns about, hey guys, stop walking, that noise is frustrating, or stop asking for the coverage shots. That's my job. It's for everyone else. This is not for me. And starting to think about, I need to just give. Robin, come do the EEG scan. I'm ready for that. I didn't want to, but then I realized by allowing you to do it, I'm giving. It's not about me and what I want. It's about what everyone's here for. So that's a lesson I took
That's interesting.
from that afterwards.
Interesting.
Wow. So he had a bunch of that anxiety, and he was like making clear like boundaries, like whatever the shaman says to do it. If I just sit there or if I decide not to take it, like none of you guys can be mad. And then when he takes it, it seems
that
like
was preemptively trying to dissipate his anxiety.
sure.
But
Yeah. And so that shows how much anxiety he had leading up to it. But then once he takes it seems like all of
because
that,
anyone who knows psychedelics knows this is a big trip.
which
right?
he does.
He
does know
fail
that.
Or
Yeah, exactly. So he knows it's
Yeah.
going to be strong and that's it. And so it's really interesting that during that experience, like all of that anxiety, like after he takes his, after he drinks the ayahuasca, that anxiety is like, it melts away and it's replaced with generosity. It's so interesting
more
that
like,
he's
what
like,
can I do? What
Right.
are we here for? If I can't remove this is part of my job thing, then okay, how do I do my job best at this moment?
but you hear about like how like psychedelics are used for, and you can look this up, how psychedelics are used for like coping with death, either like death of a close person or your own death. Like maybe you got like a cancer diagnosis.
Yes, there's what's it like? It's been approved for PTSD. I
Right.
think that's like when you have to grieve over something, or
But you see, like in his example, it's like the situation that he was so anxious to be in, he became much more accepting of. And I think that's kind of what psychedelics do. It gives you a much broader perspective on how things are, so you can be more accepting of where you are. And so, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting.
well, yeah. I'm like, what would a trip be like without that though? Because I'm like, did they get the stuff that they needed from it?
Well, yeah, okay, so let's talk about the test. So
Okay,
this
I'm
this
like-
researcher named Robin goes with him, and what he did was he took a EKG
EEG.
reading on his head, so just to kind of measure his brain activity before he took the ayahuasca, and then he asked him some control questions like, how introverted do you feel? How critical, or like, and
Things about himself, introspective questions.
right, and he has to answer them from a scale of I think 0 to 9, 0 being you don't feel like it at all, and 9 meaning you feel like it a lot. And so the researcher asks him these questions before, and then during
The
I think
trip.
after Michael takes his ayahuasca, and maybe during like the 2-hour mark, he asks the researcher Robin to come in and do the test again. So both the EKG and the questionnaire. So let's take a look at what the results are.
Each time I read an item, if you could give me a number according to how you see yourself at this moment, okay?
Okay, so this is when he's already ingested it. It's been about 2 hours and 20 minutes into his trip, which is a pretty, you're still tripping, definitely, during that time.
It's in the middle.
Yeah, so let's take a look.
I see myself right now as extroverted, enthusiastic.
1.
Okay.
1.
This is a big change for Michael. Usually he's very extroverted, and on his pre-ayahuasca answer, he gave a higher number.
Extroverted, enthusiastic.
5.
Wow!
But now I'm seeing signs of withdrawal and introversion from him.
I see myself right now as critical, quarrelsome.
2.
I see myself right now as critical, quarrelsome.
6.
Wow.
The experience has led to a change in how he sees himself. It's, in a way, reflective, perhaps, of a higher waking state.
I wonder what happens after. What the questions would be. Or
Right. That's so interesting. Like he asked him like the question about introversion, and he went, or from extroversion, and he went from like a 5 to a 1. And then he asked him a question about how critical he feels, and he went from a 6 to a 2. And that's, I think, what psychedelics do, and this is just anecdotally from my own experience, is that it makes you a lot more aware of the impact that your actions have. And then I think that's why you see him a lot more introverted, is because he's considering everything that he does, and including being critical. And so I think it's not that he's changing from an extroverted person to an introverted person, or it's not that he's becoming from a critical to a less critical person. I think he's more carefully, considering his actions and all of his actions.
Well, if the stimulus coming in is hyper, like, then same with what you're getting from yourself.
Your output.
No, but that's even stimulus from within. Your anxiety, your reactions to it.
But I think he's considering his actions more, though, because
yes, but
his...
he's maybe sensing. I don't know, less criticism then.
Yeah, and I think that's because of a broader perspective. Like, he feels like he doesn't have to be so critical because he's considering more things at the moment. Mm-hmm. All right, so what is this? I can't even see what this title is. Let's just go to...
Psychs are like.
Okay, yeah. What are psychs like?
I was probably
like
most
psychiatrists?
consumed not by
Psychedelics.
Anxiety, but by the feeling of how do I relay and describe what's happening to me later, you know, because that's what always annoyed me about discussions of psychedelic experiences, is that it all felt really vague and hard to empathize with. And now I know why. It's like describing colors to someone who's never seen. It's a completely different state of mind.
Right.
There's a bonus clip where we spoke to a woman who took psilocybin as part of this
What is
coping.
that?
Magic
that's like
mushrooms.
Yeah.
She took a pill through a study at NYU, and
I
she
got pills.
worked with these researchers for months, and they crafted a pill just for her based on her weight, based on her past. They knew what dosage to give her, and I think she felt incredibly safe. She wasn't in the middle of this brand new place.
This was therapy for coping with death?
Yeah,
Her death.
Yeah, because she had been diagnosed with cancer. And to confront your own mortality is obviously frightening. But they were experimenting with how psychedelics can help you deal with those feelings. And it was a phenomenal experience for her. She tells a story of seeing a table with all of her family and friends, but also death is at the table. And she realized, death's invited, of course. And ever since, this happened years ago, ever since she's felt much better. She's felt healthier, and she only took that one pill. It's not like she has to take one every month. It's one dose.
Wow. That's what I mean, where it helps people cope with death, even and their own diagnosis. Is that I guess you get a perspective that it's more natural. Like, death is something that we all live with, and to try to disengage with it only causes us a lot more anxiety for when it does appear.
Well, also it whenever there's huge changes like that in life and people get traumatized or they don't know how to deal with it, they just kind of stop doing everything, and that's when it's like, whoa, you can't. And I see that people who microdose kind of, they're like, okay, just I'll get through this and start remaking plans. But
microdose is taking a really small dose of a psychedelic, so
you
don't trip out, but you still get maybe the mental benefits.
Yes, and they're supposed to journal and they do stuff like that, and it's like you get to see people who are just like, okay, I just, like having to get up and do stuff and then planning, even knowing that they have something that they really never planned for or couldn't plan for or whatever. Like you said, being present now is like, what can you do now? Well, what can you do about it now? You can't just sit there and worry about it.
Yeah. And so they were talking about in the beginning, it's like, it's really hard to describe what like psychedelics are like. It's like trying to describe like color to a blind person. And so the best way I think I can explain it is like, how does our brain is like huge, right? And inside our brain, there's a bunch of like connecting branches. And then those branches, they signal to each other depending on what you're doing. And so when you experience something new, or like you travel something new, or you learn something new, there's a part of your brain that hasn't really exercised before that's now sending signals to each other. And that's how we get epiphanies, or how we learn, or how we experience new things. There's a part of your brain that's actually now working.
The neural network.
Right. But that's also how we form habits, is because, when like an athlete that does a swing like many times, like thousands of times, like that part of their brain that sends those signals to like move the arm and measure and do the strength and the direction.
A path that's been walked so many times, it's paved now.
Yes.
It's like that's
And
so your neural links will, with repetition, become so fast that
you do it automatically.
Yes. And there it's almost like electricity, I feel like.
Yeah,
where
it is.
The wire gets thicker and thicker because you practice and practice, and so then you shoot a signal down and it's like way faster than the first time you did it, because the first time it's like ding ding ding.
What psychedelics do, if you take a dose, not like a microdose, or maybe microdoses too, I don't know. What psychedelics do is they increase brain activity, like it feels like everywhere. And so, like Michael, like you feel like a lot of your brain is just working. And so parts of your brain that maybe have never had any stimulus or activity before might just start firing, because like psychedelic is the letting.
With the similar, they don't know exactly because they halted so much research with the whole war on drugs and whatnot. But the way they work is that they...
Well, we're trying to explain psychedelics to someone who's never tried it, and that's why I'm saying it's like having.
I know,
like
but
a
you're
bunch
going
of epiphanies.
into neural stuff that.
I know,
like,
but that's
not how they.
That's the easiest way a person can understand it, right? It's like they understand
So
having an epiphany or learning something.
Neurotransmitters
Yeah.
that are in there that are, or they're mimicking them, and so that's why that happens. But for some people that's fun, for other people that's scary.
But I think that's why people are able to like cope with things, is because parts of their brain that they have never like considered or have never really gotten like stimulus before are now a little more active.
Are lighted.
Yeah, they're like, more active, and you're able to, and you're
way.
literally able to see through different perspectives, because now different parts of your brains are working. Or brain. Well, I don't know. I think, a brain is like a bunch of different pieces working together. It's amazing.
Well, in the 60s, they were like, oh, you're going to fry your brain. You're going to fry your brain. It's like, but then when you talk to or when you see people who take it compared to taking other people who've taken other drugs, you're like, or even long-term alcohol use, you're like, well, actually.
All right. Well, let's talk about the stigma of psychedelics, because, there's a lot of reason why people talk about it like that. I mean, I think
psychedelics and drugs like that really have a lot of value to our society. It's a shame that they get stigmatized. And I think that stigma itself is what contributes to a lot of the negative feelings you have when you take it.
I think so too, because you start to feel like, oh my gosh,
I'm doing something wrong or
I'm
dangerous.
doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Am I a bad
There's
guy?
no coming back. I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of
like,
bad
too late.
propaganda on it. And just the fact that it's like illegal, like it makes a lot of people afraid, because they feel like they're doing something bad.
I mean, this is illegal in the country that I live, and I should feel bad that I'm doing this. This is a behavior that only bad people do.
Right.
And you have that social
Like
baggage
Steve Jobs.
on you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard about a study that doctors are starting to use MDMA to treat PTSD. So they give you a dose of MDMA, which is ecstasy in the pure form, and they sit you down, and I guess it makes you feel more comfortable opening up, and you feel more comfortable with the emotions that you're dealing with. And so all these drugs that I think it's a shame. I really think it's a shame, this war on drugs, what it's done. I genuinely believe that I genuinely believe that people don't abuse drugs unless there's something else going on. Like, people don't just all of a sudden become addicted to drugs. I think all drugs should be legal, and people should decide what they want to do. And if there's education and support,
You could go to
help
Uruguay.
people navigate those waters, that we would be a healthier, better society.
And the word drugs, what does it mean? Because it
sounds
catches
bad.
so many things.
Yeah.
Everything from heroin to DMT
To Tylenol.
to caffeine to Tylenol,
Yeah.
right? And so we have done a disservice to both ourselves and to innovation and knowledge by saying, ooh, you're going to study psychedelics?
Right.
We really only want to fund that if you're going to be studying the bad side of them.
Right.
And only recently has that started to break apart, and we have this now renaissance of investigation of psychedelics. Imperial College London has this whole psychedelics research group, and that's what Robin was from, who came with us. And so we're starting to be able to understand more about the mind, because you cannot have a complete theory of the mind if you avoid or ignore something that it's capable of.
So he says
I forgot what's theory of mind.
He says we're having like a renaissance of psychedelics. And I think the reason why we're having it is kind of unfortunate. It's because like PTSD and like depression and like
mental
all of
health
these
issues. When I was studying psychology 20 years ago, like the medical field in the US did not look at psychiatry or mental health as an important part of human.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
biology.
unfortunate
So
because we're seeing things like suicide on the rise. And it's like,
regardless of situation, of status, of whatever, you see people.
it affects everyone. Mental health affects everyone, and it's
anyone
like
with a mind.
Internationally, I think you're seeing suicide rates go up. And I think every country is interested in looking at solutions.
Global intervention is needed if we want a next generation to survive.
Yeah, and the renaissance I think we're seeing is because countries are taking it seriously, like looking for answers to like help their populations.
Well, and then also everybody else pushing all the other drugs are now getting like sued up the wazoo for the actual epidemics and people they've been killing for, like.
Right, and those other drugs don't necessarily help with the mental issues.
No, they don't.
They just help with all of the
help,
physical pain.
They help health issue people get addicted to something that maybe seems a little less
and the interesting
illegal
thing,
or whatever, because it comes in a pill and it's sold and I can get a prescription for it.
Right.
And they get addicted and die that way.
And things like cannabis or even ayahuasca and LSD and psilocybin, which is shrooms,
I used to smoke cigarettes. They got me psychedelics. Quit.
They all come from plants. Like cannabis comes from a plant.
Yes.
Ayahuasca comes from a plant. Shrooms are a mushroom.
Well, so do opioids. There's lots of things that come from plants and are extracted.
Right.
So does caffeine. Nicotine's from a plant.
Sugar's from a plant. No, that's what I'm saying. It's just as natural as everything else that we consume. Like caffeine, sugar, tea. They're all plants.
I can't. Yeah, that's why nobody who really knows me can't say anything about my cannabis use. But I'm like, it doesn't help if everybody else still kind of feels the same way towards it, that it's bad. If I can't get it at Ralph's, then and if I could only pay cash.
That's like a drug deal.
That's what I'm saying. But what do you think has happened with
you can't
cannabis?
pay card, and if I can't pay card,
and they're like, what, why is it all cash? It must be no, that can't be. I'm like, it's the laws. Don't tell, like I'm just trying to stick with the laws. I'm not trying to do anything illegal. But
that's actually a big reason why we started this show, and the reason why we smoke every episode. It's not, part of our business model is our merch store, but we don't make any money on our merch store.
Yes.
But we wanted to normalize
value that can help people.
Well, yes, that too. But we also wanted to normalize cannabis for people. Like, we don't want to necessarily be a stoner channel, but then we smoke weed so we can normalize just the act of smoking, or just even being able to show people like what it looks like when people smoke and like
but
talk.
But people get so offended by
but that's okay.
Offended by the smell.
But that's a part of breaking the stigma is like people are going to be offended, but you have to be out there so other people can see that other people are doing it. And so, like, I think the people who are offended by it are more outspoken than the people who are maybe inspired by it or are like,
being
encouraged
helped by it.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people like, oh, I smoke too because I have this and this and it helped me get off of this and this and this. And I'm just like there's a whole bunch of us like hiding our use or trying to hide the smell just because. And I'm in California. But especially being a mom of young kids and stuff, you can't show up to their school picking them up smelling like weed. You can smell like wine. I've seen that happen all the time. I'm like, what? And we're letting these people drive. You smell like weed though, and some of them will call CPS on you.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't be able to get out of bed sometimes without this.
Exactly. Like, you can't break stigma without offending people, and I think the biggest example of that is Joe Rogan. Like, how many times does he talk about DMT on his podcast, right? And like Stephen Colbert
I don't
doesn't
know
do
what
that.
DMT
Conan O'Brien doesn't do it. DMT is the
They can't.
extracted form of
They
ayahuasca.
can't do that. They would get
No.
kicked off their networks.
I know, but
You know
who
that,
has a
like-
bigger audience? Who got a $100 million Spotify licensing deal from Spotify? It wasn't Conan or Stephen Colbert. It was the guy who was like breaking stigma. Yeah, he
Or
offends a
more
lot of
real
people.
about-
Like, he offends a lot of people. People still want him canceled on Spotify. Even Spotify employees want him canceled.
In my generation, someone that was like Howard Stern. He was very offensive, but I was like, but he has such a huge following.
But I think that's why before when we were saying,
So are we supposed to be offensive?
no,
we already
But
are.
I think the people who agree with it are going to be quieter than the people who are offended by it. But then the people who agree with it are going to be huge. Like, his audience is huge.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's why breaking stigma is important. Because that's not the way, like, things need
Well,
correction.
And why was there that stigma to begin with? That's another
Because all of the, he said it.
BS.
He said all of the research that was going to be funded for it would only be funded if they could show the negative effects of these drugs. All right, we got one more on breaking the stigma. So let's see this clip. Wow, almost 40 minutes already.
Something I found fascinating was that
We don't
when I
shut up when
spoke
we
with
talk about
Robin,
Hit him with the damn.
Okay, so
fascinating.
Robin is the researcher that went with him. That the psychedelic researcher.
The school that funded him, or the research facility that funded him.
YouTube funded him.
Oh,
But,
YouTube funded him.
but they sent there was a researcher that went along with him that tested him. That's Robin.
Oh, that got the yeah.
Yeah, so he's
test
that's what he's
results
talking
and stuff.
about is Robin.
fascinating. I asked Robin, the head of the Psychedelics research group at Imperial College London. I'm like, so what's your experience with psychedelics?
Right. Assuming
I'm not allowed to tell
she's
you.
done it.
He.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Robin.
He doesn't know.
Robin,
He
like
is-
Batman and Robin.
Right.
He goes, well, I don't talk about that. I was like,
What? It's
what?
like, dude.
What? And he's like, well,
Yeah.
my grandmother might see
That's
this.
such a cop out.
And I'm saying that is I was going to say fascinating. I'm like, that is,
You see, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's like drugs.
it's the F word.
I've got all the stigma around that.
What a great example of that
Yeah.
stigma. That
It's-
your job is to research psychedelics, and you can't
What
say
a-
that you've ever
yeah.
experienced them. What other scientist does that? Oh, I study gorillas.
Maybe 'cause he
Oh,
took it
have you
from
ever
the
seen
lab.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I would never look at a
Government
gorilla.
grade,
I've talked to
pharmaceutical
people
grade
who have looked
psychedelics.
at them.
Yeah.
Or imagine an astronomer who's like, yeah, I've been studying the stars and the motions of the planets. I've never looked up.
Yeah.
Don't judge me. I don't look
Yeah.
up. I talk to others who have, and until we break that barrier, I think we're really missing out on a big part of the human mind.
Yep, that's true. Steve Jobs said in his book that LSD was one of the most significant experiences of his life. That's what got me. Curious about psychedelics. And then we took LSD like over the weekend.
Which weekend?
Um,
This weekend.
yeah.
No, I mean I thought you were talking about the first time.
Oh, no. The first time I took LSD was at Coachella. It was nuts.
Oh, the first
So
time
crazy.
I was in college. It was the drops. It didn't do anything.
When-
But everybody else who took it.
When was the
were
first time you
alright.
took LSD that actually you had a trip then? Like
I think
a few years ago?
when we
That was like 3 or 4 years
when
ago.
we were sourcing because they didn't have gel tabs back then. All they had were the liquid drops and the paper.
Okay, so we were doing this for because we needed to look for products to help our patients with like depression.
None of our weed
and
has
PTSD.
LSD or psilocybin.
Well, no,
in
but
it.
that's the thing about psychedelics is different psychedelics do different things, and weed
Yes.
is on the very mild side of psychedelics, where it can treat a lot of things, but then it's not nearly as intense as other psychedelics. Like you can.
The first time I got high off weed, yes, it was. I was like,
But do you think you could have gotten ego death?
non-functioning.
That's what
I
that's
did get
cerebral.
ego death.
Oh,
The first time
Okay.
I smoked weed and the first time I dabbed. That's why I swore off weed as the worst drug ever. And the, Coke and other stuff, I was just like, oh, this is like so mild compared to that. Everything else was mild compared to.
I don't see
my
a lot of
weed
people
trip.
getting ego death with weed. That's why, like,
Yeah.
even with the
I
huge,
see people
huge
smoke
edibles,
it, and
I don't
I'm
see
like,
anyone
"You're
getting ego
not-"
death.
Yeah, I was surprised that it's not common, but that's what the first acid trip made me feel like. This is like, it was like that.
Yeah,
It's
it
weird,
was.
but-
It's a lot of fun. I shouldn't say it's a lot of fun. I shouldn't recommend anything.
No, because some people do have bad trips. And
Yes.
Because for ayahuasca, people
very
I
lucky.
know who have done it have said the shaman, it's like a whole, like they tell you what, you're not supposed to eat pig meat, you're not supposed to eat certain types of plants, or like there's a whole diet, and then a state
'cause
of
that one you're
mind
actually
you're supposed to
drinking.
be in. If
LSD
you're not
is
in the
like-
right state of mind, they tell you don't do it.
Yeah,
So
that's true. There's a lot of, and I think and I'm a strong proponent of
who wants to be bawling their eyes out for 8 hours?
therapy focused psychedelics where like someone's actually like watching you
Trip buddies.
or observing you. Yeah, I think a trip buddy would be best because that person is actually going through it with you, so they understand where you are in your trip. Whereas someone who's just
and
watching
they
you, they're
won't
timing you.
They won't make you freak out more. Where someone gets rushed to the ER, and then you just have a stupid ER bill that's like they couldn't do anything for you anyways. It's like go home and go to sleep.
Well, no, just even
But-
just having someone understand what you're feeling, I think is a lot more reassuring than someone who's just watching.
Yeah, no, then they can turn the trip around if it goes in a bad.
Yeah. All right, well, we got to end this episode. This is super long. Go check out our merch store. If you don't have buds, we're your buds. This thing is a smoke catcher. It's the reason why we stopped burning holes in all of our clothes. It's on our merch store. Super useful. Go check it out. All right, guys. I'll see you.
If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe.